Welcome to the first regular season edition of the HoosierIllustrated.com basketball postgame wrap-up show. John Alden of In Touch with Indiana Sports and basketball recruiting analyst Kyler Staley with you this evening, following Indiana's 80-61 season opening victory against SIU Edwardsville. A very sloppy game all around with some good, some bad. The good definitely being Mackenzie Mbako's career night. In the season opener, very impressive to see the jump that he made. Some sloppy defensive play. Kyler, go ahead. And before I mention everything, I'll toss it over to you. What were kind of your observations from tonight's opener at Assembly Hall?
Yeah, not the prettiest game by any stretch of the means, but I think Indiana started off the game with really good intentions. I thought the pace was pretty much well set. I think Indiana wanted to, control that pace and play fast, but things just they got a little bit too fast. You say that, and that's where the sloppiness came. And then, of course, you have a big night from Mackenzie Mbako, 31 points, 13 of 17, 4 of 5 from three. I mean, just spectacular. And obviously, Indiana didn't obviously shoot as a team, total-wise, didn't shoot the three ball very well. But at the same time, Mackenzie Mbako, he really got them out of really stagnant stretches, I would say, tonight. Malik Renew had some good signs as well. He showed up. Umar Ballo showed up as well. But this team, you can definitely tell based off watching their first real game of the season, they're a work in progress. I think it's going to take time for this team to just kind of gel a little bit, figure out, when to play fast, when to slow things down, and just take care of those turnovers, because those turnovers are just killers and backbreakers. And, SIUE is not, a nationally great team or anything, but, I mean, they got some guys on that that's going to take advantage. So definitely a work in progress, but, you saw some good signs tonight.
4 or 5 starters in double figures, but there was one starter who didn't manage to get on the board at all tonight, and that was Kanan Carlisle. Why do you feel like it was difficult for him to really find a rhythm tonight?
Also, I mean, he struggled. So what? He played the Tennessee game, struggled in that one, didn't play Marion game because of some bruised ribs. So, I mean, there's a lot going on with him. I think, he's fighting injuries. He's in a new system. He's trying to find a new rhythm, a new groove and everything. But I was talking to Dylan, one of our staff writers, at HoosierIllustrated.com during this game, and I was like, you know what? I mean, people can bill Kanan Carlisle to be this offensive guy, this shooter, whatever. That's not really what he is. I mean, if he's a guy that, buys in on the defensive end, which tonight he really did, there was really good moments on the defensive end by him. He was locking down players, really guarding the ball very, very well. So if he can be that guy for Indiana, I think that could be his role in a lot of ways. But I think right now he's just finding himself, trying to get comfortable in a new system, in a new style of play. It'll come for him. It's just going to take a little bit of time.
Not much going on from the bench tonight. You did get a pretty decent performance from Trey Galloway, especially in the second half, at least from what I could see. But outside of Trey Galloway's 6 points, he only got 2 from Bryson Tucker. Nothing from Gabe Cupps and Luke Goody. I know Gabe Cupps only played about 5 minutes, but Luke Goody with 20 minutes on the floor, not able to translate any of that into baskets. Do you think we saw him struggle against Tennessee as well? Do you think it's going to take a while for him to kind of get into a rhythm with this new system that he's a part of?
Do I think it'll take a while? That's a good question. I don't think so. Honestly, I think for Luke Goody, it's going to take one game. It's going to take one game for him to just start knocking down shots, find that rhythm and get in that groove. Kind of like Carlisle in a way. He's in a new system. He's in not really a new role. He's a shooter. That's what he's been his whole life. But, he's in a new environment. I don't want to say it's going to take time. I think it's just going to take a game. Take a game for him to break out of that funk, get some shots. You mentioned the bench in general. I think when Indiana really started to struggle was when Mike Woodson went full bench and put everybody in. You saw, the offense really got stagnant, a lot of standing around. Trey Galloway was trying to be the quarterback out there, but things just weren't really working. And Mike Woodson said it in his postgame presser. The ball really wasn't moving. The bodies were moving. The ball wasn't really moving. But you saw Mike Woodson, instantly go back to his starters, start to slowly put those guys back in one by one. Things started to pick up a little bit. I just think, there's a lot of new pieces with this team. For any new team there is, it's not going to gel right away. Not even an off season, a whole spring, a whole summer is really going to make that thing complete. It takes games like this. It takes games to figure things out. They know how talented they are. Indiana fans know how talented this team is. They will figure it out. It just takes more and more games like this. It's going to take probably, until the South Carolina game for them to have a really, really good feel of what they can do and how to play with each other. before you start getting deeper into the season and the Big Ten season as well.
Yeah, and definitely felt like there was a decent amount of overreacting online, which that is to be expected. And I'm not trying to act like the fan base is representative of what happens online, but there has been a lot of buildup over the last really year or so of just whenever you don't see, and maybe I'm not giving Indiana enough credit here. They did win the game by 19 points. They didn't cover, but they did find a way to finally pull away from a very pesky SIU Edwardsville team that did a really good job at hanging around. But at the same time, we've seen this story plenty of times where Indiana does let teams like this hang around. And I think the biggest issue with it specifically is just the fact that these are the types of games where if this happens frequently, it doesn't help you when it comes to, the net ratings, which will become very important as you get towards the end of the season. And I just think that's something that if you continue to see more of these lower caliber opponents, because Indiana does play a decent amount of them this year, and you don't take care of them more, I don't know if consistently is the right word, but just more dominantly than a team like this, maybe you run into some issues down the road.
Well, let's think about this. Last season, this game probably would have been a 5-point win by Indiana. Let's think about it.
And that's fair, and that would be much worse than 19 points.
Absolutely. So the big thing, obviously, you go back to last season, and I know we harp on it a little bit. It's a brand new season, but the only thing I'm going to say is this. Last season, one of the big reasons why Indiana didn't make the NCAA tournament was because the metrics hated them. And they hated them because they stuck around with teams like this, winning by a couple possessions and things like that. I know Indiana fans wanted this team to win. They wanted to see a 40-point plus victory tonight. Yes, that would have been great if it happened, but at the same time, like I mentioned, this team is brand new. There's a lot of new pieces. You're trying to figure things out. They can build off of this. They certainly can build off of this, and you're going to see this offseason because they do have some very, I guess you could say, poor teams coming into Assembly Hall. You're going to see games where they win by 30-plus points or so. I will take 19-point victory right now. First game of the season, extremely. I mean, obviously it was sloppy, but they still won by 19 points, and they figured out a way to win. And they kind of fought, I don't want to say through adversity, but they fought through some sloppiness, and they figured things out on the fly. And that's what a good team does right now. They just need to figure out how to make things work consistently on the floor, when to play fast, when to push the pace, when to slow things down, and just when to be careful in certain situations. They'll be fine. Indiana will be fine. There's too much talent on this team for it not to be fine, and they will figure it out. 19-point victory tonight. You take that, and you just got to see what they can build off the next game.
Want to get back to more of a positive thing before we wrap this thing up here tonight. Back to Mackenzie Mbako specifically. Do you think he'll be able to replicate performances like this in multiple games? Like, I know that he was very much the beginning of Mackenzie Mbako's career at Indiana last year to the second half of his freshman season was a big jump. Now it seems like we may already be seeing the beginning of another big jump at the beginning of his sophomore season. Do you think that he's going to show nights like this more frequently? And also, do you think he could end up being maybe Indiana's most important player, especially offensively this year, potentially?
That's a lot of good questions, honestly. Do I think I'll see more big games? Do we think we'll see more big games out of Mackenzie Mbako this season? Absolutely. 30 plus points, maybe a little bit of a stretch, because there's a lot of talent on this team, and the wealth is going to be spread, throughout the whole entire season with this team. And Trey Galloway kind of mentioned it. It's important for this team to figure out, okay, whose night is it? When they're in the game, when they're in game settings. Tonight it was Mackenzie Mbako's night, but next game it could be Miles Rice's night. The game after that it could be Malik Renew's night. There's so much balance on this team. I think, consistently, will Mackenzie Mbako, go off like he does? I don't think so, but that's not a knock on Mackenzie Mbako. It's just because there's a lot of pieces on this team, and you just got to figure out early on, okay, who's feeling it tonight? Who's playing out of their mind, and then feeding that guy and doing certain things to get those guys good looks. Tonight was Mackenzie Mbako's night. You're going to see big games out of him. I just don't know if it's going to be consistently, 20-plus points a night.
It's definitely an early indicator where when Indiana eventually finds themselves in a position where they need somebody to make a bucket down the stretch, maybe Mackenzie Mbako ends up being that guy for Indiana that just wants the ball in his hands because he knows he's going to find a way to get it into the basket. And again, maybe I'm overreacting to that, but it is just something to potentially keep an eye on, I feel like.
Yeah, and the last thing I'll say with Mackenzie Mbaku is, he mentioned it in the post-game presser. He just plays through his teammates. That's what he does. And he said this offseason, he said someone asked him, what did you work on offensively this offseason to get better? He said, I mostly worked on defense because I realized that defense creates offense. And that's what you saw tonight. He was bought in on the defensive end. That got his motor up. This was the highest motor that I've ever seen Mackenzie Mbaku play with, crashing the boards, competing on the defensive end, getting out in transition, and just, being aggressive. And that's what he's doing. He plays within the system. He plays within his teammates. And as long as he continues to do that, he's going to be really special for this team. And there's a lot of potential for him when it comes to, the NBA, first team All Big Ten, and all those accolades.
The 17th ranked Indiana Hoosiers off to a 1-0 start on the season with a 80-61 victory over SIU Edwardsville. They'll be back in action on Sunday, the 10th, against Eastern Illinois, 12 o'clock on Big Ten Plus. Their only game on, at least in the regular season, that'll be on Big Ten Plus. You will have some other games on Peacock and things like that. But until then, Kyler, appreciate you taking a few minutes to let us know what you saw from really your perspective at Assembly Hall tonight, and we'll have plenty more of these to come later this year, my friend.
Absolutely.
All right, that'll do it for another edition of the HoosierIllustrated.com postgame wrap-up show, and we'll have more stuff coming up later this week. Of course, In Touch with Indiana Sports. Check out the replay of my conversation with Ant Wright, by the way, if you happen to miss that earlier today. And then we'll have some football stuff later on in the week as well. So stay tuned for all of that. Until then, this has been another episode or another edition of the HoosierIllustrated.com basketball postgame wrap-up show.